The debate of the Codex Astartes. The Imperium of Man, stretching across over 1 million worlds, is no stranger to turmoil and strife. For over 10 millennia, it has endured all manner of catastrophe and has enacted a host of decrees to ensure its own survival. Amongst the most significant of these events was the implementation of the Codex Astartes. Whilst widely accepted and adhered to by the majority of Space Marine chapters, there was a time when the very tenets and doctrines of the Codex Astartes were not so. Today, we look back to the moment the Codex Astartes was implemented and the full weight of that decision. Before the Codex Astartes and the founding of the Space Marine chapters, the Astartes were known as the Legions Astartes. Self-sufficient in many ways, like the current day chapters, the Astartes legions were said to be at least 10,000 strong upon their founding. While large in comparison to Astartes chapters, there was no technical limit to the potential size of the legions. The legion of Horus himself is recorded as being at least 20,000 strong during the days of the Great Crusade. The legions Astartes travelled across the stars, conquering world after world and purging scores of xeno races and bringing surviving pockets of human civilization into the fold, under the Imperium of Man. Each legion served under a single Primarch, genetically engineered by the Emperor himself. The Primarchs were sons to the Emperor, as well as to serve as top generals and officials within the Imperium of Man. For years, the Primarchs and their legions stood as a bastion of hope and as a symbol of the Imperium in all its glory. All that changed with the Great Heresy. Horus, along with 8 of his brother Primarchs and their Astartes legions, fell to chaos corruption and turned against the Emperor, casting the Imperium into civil war. An act that would become known as the Horus Heresy. The ensuing conflict shook the Imperium to the core. Horus, favoured son of the Emperor, had turned against his father. The Astartes legions, once celebrated as the great protectors of humanity, were now laying waste to its worlds, shattering its armies and slaughtering its people. Even the legions themselves were not spared from this schism. Within the very legions that followed Horus and the traitor Primarchs, thousands of Astartes remained loyal to the Emperor and fought on the side of the Loyalists, as well as elements of the Loyalist legions, joining the side of the traitors. Warriors who fought shoulder to shoulder on countless battlefields now faced each other on the same field, spilling each other's blood. After many fierce battles and millions of lives lost, the heresy came to an end with the death of Horus at the hands of the Emperor himself and the banishment of the traitors, being driven into a region of the galaxy perpetually engulfed by a warp storm, known as the Eye of Terror. Victory, however, came at a cost. 3 Primarchs were killed, Terror was sieged, the Imperial Palace assaulted. Many key Imperial officials had been slain, the Astartes legions had been severely battered by the conflict, and worst of all, the Emperor had been mortally injured. Within the guidance of the Emperor, the surviving loyal Primarchs were faced with the daunting task of what to do next. Amongst this period of rebuilding and scouring the Imperium to ensure all traitor elements had been driven out of the Imperial space, the Primarch of the 13th Legion, the Ultramarines, had proposed the implementation of what he would call the Codex Astartes. Created during the height of the heresy, the Codex Astartes was written and proposed as a fundamental restructuring of the legions, designed to provide tactical and strategic guidance to the new Astartes formations. The Codex Astartes also stated several safety measures be taken to prevent a second rebellion on the scale of the heresy. Amongst the most significant of the changes stated that the legions would be broken down into chapters of no more than 1,000 Astartes. It was proposed that the dispersion of the Astartes into chapters of 1,000 would minimize the potential damage of any future rebellions or corruption. It was also believed that the formation of chapters would encourage a degree of individuality between the chapters and, in time, individual cultures unique to each chapter, which would greatly reduce the spread of any rebellion or corruption due to presumed significant cultural differences between the chapters. As substantial as these proposed changes were, not all of the Primarchs were in favour of the proposal. 3 of the surviving 6 loyalist Primarchs argued vehemently against the implementation of the Codex. Key amongst the opposition was the Primarch of the Imperial Fists Legion, Rogel Dawn. Dawn, along with his legion, led the defence of the Sol system and Terra itself, personally defending the Imperial Palace against traitor forces. Dawn argued that while the implementation of the Codex Astartes would indeed protect the Imperium from internal schism, it would, however, severely limit Imperial strength when dealing with external threats. Would 1,000 Astartes truly be enough to deal with most Imperial threats? What if a threat emerged that would require more than one of the new chapter formations? Who would take overall command? How would chapters with different methods of waging war operate together effectively? Would chapters with distinct cultural differences truly work together for the greater good of the Imperium? As a legion in the Astartes would have a clear chain of command, they would be better organised during large campaigns. An overall commander would be able to focus the full might of the Astartes towards a single purpose. It was the legions that had united Terra. It was the legions that had conquered the galaxy. And despite the heresy, it was the legions that had successfully defended Terra and the Imperial Palace. The quarrel between the Primarchs regarding the Codex had reached such intensity that an engagement erupted between the forces supporting the implementation of the Codex and forces opposing the implementation. This would sadly lead to a threat of a second civil war within the Imperium once more. After a particularly costly campaign to root out remnants of the traitor forces, known as the Iron Cage, Rogel Dawn ultimately relented and agreed to implement the Codex Astartes, swinging the final vote in favour of the proposal. The legions would be broken down into chapters, and the Imperium was spared a second civil war. Dawn, however, had implemented a safety feature of his own. A secret decree was given to all Imperial Fist successor chapters. Should the Imperium face a threat like no other, and Terra itself was truly threatened, all chapters founded from the elements of the Imperial Fists would gather once more under a single banner, essentially reforging the Imperial Fist Legion and defending Terra itself as the Legion did during the Great Heresy. This decree would become known as the Last Wall Protocol. Ultimately, time would prove both Primarchs correct in their respective ways. Whilst chapters have fallen to chaos or simply rebelled from the Imperium as a whole, new threats have emerged, necessitating truly large deployment of Astartes forces. Multiple campaigns have shown that indeed not all Astartes chapters would work together, and often produce severe friction between Imperial forces. During the conflict that would be known as the War of the Beast, the Last Wall Protocol was enacted, and all Imperial Fist successor chapters gathered once more to defend Terra itself against an Orc war like no other. And in more recent times, all successor chapters of the Blood Angels gathered to defend their homeworld Baal against a massive Tyrannid Hive fleet, designated Leviathan. Ultimately, was the implementation of the Codex Astartes to the Imperium's benefit, or was it to the Imperium's detriment? Only time will tell.